Brendan Dassey trial transcripts, day 2, page 240. This is the beginning of Attorney Freeman's cross-examination of Olson. Doctor, I noticed, and you did ask Attorney Fallon if you could refer to your notes. I understand it's been about 12 or 15 months since you evaluated these items, completed your reports. I evaluated in December of '05, February of '06, April of '06, and November of '06. So it would be difficult for you from the top of your head to know everything that you wrote in your reports or recall everything you wrote in your reports. Well, I tried to prepare today to be able to not refer to them, but some of the specific questions I asked to review my notes. And that's fine. You had indicated, and actually I only have a few questions for you, so hopefully we'll make it easier for you. You'd indicated that when you reviewed, when you tested the areas of, on EJ, I think in your notes you refer to them as, there's 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6. That's the outer edges of that bevel area. That's correct. That you noted the presence of calcium and phosphorus, which you've testified is consistent with bone. Correct. And lead, which wouldn't normally be consistent with a human bone. I'm not aware of finding that large concentrations in human bone. There's small concentrations of lead in the human body, but not in bone like that, correct? Not that I'm able to detect. Now, and your assumption is that it might be from some sort of a lead projectile. In fact, you said bullet? Yes. Are you aware of what items were in the fire pit or in this, where this burning pit that might have maybe contributed to the lead presence? I knew there were tires. That's about the limit of my knowledge. Okay, well, it could have something in the fire, had it been lead, contributed to these deposits. It's possible, but it would have to be a relatively pure sample. Did you note any copper in any of these in your evaluation? No, I did not. You did note other elements, including zinc, magnesium, aluminum. That's correct. So just to be correct, on your direct, it wasn't just calcium, phosphorus, and lead, but at least 3 or 4 more other elements. That's correct. And would that be normal to find in the human bone? I have limited opportunities to examine bone fragments, but on the samples that I did examine, I was not surprised with the elements I was seeing there. When you also did your control samples, similar type of elements would show up? Yes, and again, not a surprise to you. That's correct. Your control was only on one other area of the bone fragments you provided to you. Every surface that I examined, like if it was the inner surface of one of the bones, I would do a control on the inner surface. If I examined the entrance on the outer surface, I would do a control on that same outer surface. And you did that for every fragment that you received? Yes, I did. You also received a headboard? Yes, I did. And you had an opportunity to examine it to determine if there were any rope fibers, correct? That's what I was requested to examine, to see if I could find any rope fibers attached to the headboard. So you were directed to look for this? That's correct. And you did a visual examination, correct? Visual with some microscopic exam. So the first step would be to visually observe the item? That's correct. And when you visually observed the item, you noted no rope fibers, correct? That's correct. And then, of course, the microscopic evaluation would be because our eyes aren't that great, right? A magnification helps in the area of trace evidence. And obviously that's your training, and you know that the next step would be to try to take a closer look, correct? That's correct. And in order to do so, you used some sort of an adhesive tape to pull up what might be on the surface of that wooden spindle on the headboard? Yes. That's one technique for looking for fibers, is by using a tape lift to take a not too strong of an adhesive, but just a tape lift, like a lint remover type lift, and then examine what fibers were recovered from that. You don't want to pull off the surface itself. That's correct. And so with that, you were able to then place it onto some sort of a slide. Actually, I place it on a plastic backing, and then I can examine that under the microscope, and if I see something of interest, I can put a little cut in that plastic and with a solvent remove all the fibers I'm interested in. Did you note any fibers? Yes. Were they rope fibers? They were not consistent with rope fibers. You noted some cotton fibers? That's correct. Okay, I have nothing else. Thank you, doctor. The court. Any redirect? Attorney Fallon. Yes. Redirect examination by Attorney Fallon. What is it expected or unusual for you to find any rope fibers given the material you examine? In my experience, smooth surfaces like spindles on a headboard are not your best surface for snagging fibers. If there was slivers, a nail, or something that could snag rope fibers, that would be a better method for depositing fibers on a surface. All right, now did you find anything else on that headboard? Yes, on one of the spindles there was a thin plastic film that I removed and analyzed and identified it as polypropylene. What are some of the uses of polypropylene? Polypropylene is used in garments. It's used as plastic containers. It is also used in rope manufacturing. Attorney Fallon, no further questions. Attorney Freeman, no, Judge. The court, all right, you may step down. The witness, thank you, Your Honor. The court, you're welcome. Any further witnesses this afternoon? Attorney Fallon, we do not have any this afternoon, Judge. We went a little more quickly than anticipated. The court, all right. Mr. Freeman, you want to be heard on some of these exhibits? I'll excuse the jury for the afternoon and we can talk about the exhibits. Ladies and gentlemen, you are done for this afternoon. We'll see you tomorrow at 8:30. Again, I remind you, don't talk about this among yourselves or anyone else. Have a good night. Jurors out at 3:59 p.m. The court, all right, be seated. At issue are exhibits 132 through and including 140. You, Mr. Freeman, and or Mr. Edelstein have objections to one or the other of those? Attorney Freeman, Judge, I have no objection to exhibit 132 and 137 through 140. My objections are specifically to 133 and 136. They're curriculum vitae of the two witnesses. Don't believe that that is evidence. I'm not entirely sure why they were even marked. These witnesses were testifying already about their expertise and their backgrounds. For those two, that's the reason I have an objection. The court, all right, you want to be heard on that? Attorney Fallon, they're just part of the record. The court, yeah, they can be received. They're not going to be published to the jury or anything of that sort. So, Attorney Freeman, and if that's the ruling of the court, then I would have the same as to 134 and 135. And simply, if it gets to the point of what the jury wants to see, we want to be heard on that because technically those are reports. Technically, they're hearsay reports. The witnesses have already testified, and it should be the recollection of the witnesses at the time of the jury deliberations, not what the report says. The court, yeah, I understand. I will receive all of them subject to the reservation of hearing what gets published or what goes back, if anything, to the jury. Attorney Fallon, all right, that's fine. That's all we would ask. The court, okay, anything else? Attorney Freeman, no, Judge. The court, all right, we'll meet in my chambers in about 10 minutes. Attorney Fallon, sure. The court, we're adjourned until tomorrow at 8:30 then. Court stands adjourned at 4:01 p.m.